Hey class, I'm here today to read to you the story Young Arthur. Some of you may be familiar with stories of King Arthur, The Sword and the Stone, Excalibur the Sword. Young Arthur is the story of how Arthur became King Arthur. Okay, so this is something that you're probably very familiar with as well. Let's preview our text before we start to read. Notice that we have our title, Young Arthur. You see his shield or coat of arms. Most knights, most kings have a shield or coat of arms, and it says a lot about them. It kind of depicts their personality, their characters, and who they are. We have a picture of King Uther and Merlin. Notice that we do have some words that will be bold and highlighted. Those will be our vocabulary words that we focus on. As we scroll through, we see another picture. We see a picture of a sword. We see a picture of two men jousting. And as we continue to scroll, you see that we still have some more words that are bold and underlined. And as we come to our last page, we do have our list of vocabulary words to know. Our first word being melancholy. It is a noun, and it just means sadness, depression. And if you have melancholy, if you feel this way, it just means that you're very sad about something. Reclaim, the prefix re means again. So if you are reclaiming something, claim means to take, it's yours, but reclaim is to get something back again. Just like if I redo something, it means that I am doing it over. Taskmaster is a person who sets tasks for others to do. Grievous, it sounds like the word grieving, and it pretty much means the same thing. This is just the adjective form. Grievous means painful or serious. Flinching, when you are drawn back from difficulty or danger. Upstart, suddenly risen to wealth or power. Dismount, to get down or off, such as a horse. Pommel is a knob or the handle of a sword, so it's the part of the sword that you would hold. And homage is display of loyalty and respect. Okay, so those are our vocabulary words that we'll focus on throughout our reading. If we scroll back up to the top, you guys see that I have a link right here. Currently, this is just an audio link with a different narrator. Okay, so it's not a video. It doesn't show any annotating or highlighting. It is just an audio version. I will include the link to this video right underneath. Okay, before we get started, I want you guys to think about kings and how we perceive them, knights and how we perceive them, usually as being very loyal, being very determined. So as we read, think about what type of person young Arthur has evolved into, and also what the theme is. What message or lesson is the author trying to tell us? Okay, let's get started with our reading. King Uther heard the baby's wail or cry and leaped to his feet. There was a sharp rap or knock at the chamber door, and a servant entered grinning happily. "You have a son," he told the king. Uther's joy knew no bounds. When he was ushered into Queen Igerner's bedchamber, Uther looked lovingly at mother and son. "The boy's name shall be Arthur," he declared, "and he shall be a great king. For Merlin, the magician, has foretold that he will one day rule the greatest kingdom under heaven." Okay, so King Uther and Queen Igerna just had a baby, and they named him Arthur. But Uther's happiness did not last. His beloved queen died soon after Arthur's birth. As sadness sapped or took the king's spirit, weakened the king's spirit, he lost interest in ruling, and Merlin was unable to rouse him from his melancholy or depression. "Unrest grows throughout the land," Merlin warned. "Your old foes or enemies are rising in rebellion. Give the babe into my keeping, for you have enemies even at court." So this tells us that Uther became very depressed after Queen Igerna died. And Merlin was very concerned about Arthur because Arthur was supposed to be king one day. So Merlin is helping King Uther out and taking Arthur away from all the rising rebellion. I'm going to put a comment in there, okay? King Uther is upset over the death of his queen. Rebellion has started, and Merlin Merlin wants to keep Arthur, baby Arthur, safe. So I'm going to leave that there for you. Okay, so remember, Merlin is taking Arthur away so that he can be safe and so that Uther can hopefully get his drive and determination back. Anxious for his son's safety, Uther agreed. So Merlin, disguised as a beggar, took the infant Arthur to Sir Ector and his lady, who lived some distance from the court and all its dangers. He told them nothing about the child, save or except that his name was Arthur. The couple had recently lost their infant son and welcomed Arthur as their own. Soon rebellion divided the kingdom. Uther, reclaiming or taking back his old spirit, becoming determined again, rallied his knights and barons. With Merlin always beside him, he drove back his enemies. So it sounds like King Uther got his drive and determination back and was able to keep rebellion away. But as Uther celebrated his victory in the town of Verulam, traitors poisoned the town's wells. The king and his loyal followers were stricken. They became sickened with the poison. Merlin alone escaped. Though he tried his healing arts on Uther, he was forced to confess, "Sire, there is no remedy." So here we can tell that King Uther and his land was poisoned, and Merlin could not help. It was just too much for Merlin. It's not that Merlin did not want to help. It was just too much for him. There was no remedy. There was no magic that can make everybody well. Then said the dying monarch, "I declare that my son shall be king of all this realm after me. God's blessing and mine be upon him." With these words, Uther died. When the rebels entered Verulam, only Merlin was alive. "Tell us where Uther's son is hidden," they demanded, "so that we can slay him and end Uther's line." But Merlin vanished before their eyes. Remember, Merlin's a magician, so it was easy for him to vanish. And it sounded like these traitors, they wanted to kill Arthur so that he couldn't be king one day. Young Arthur was raised as a son in Sir Ector's house. He learned to read and write alongside his foster brother Kay, who was 4 years older. By the time he was 15, Arthur was a tall, handsome, quick-witted lad, meaning he was pretty smart. Though he had great strength, he also had a gentle manner. Kay, who had recently been knighted, decided to train Arthur in the knightly arts himself. But Kay was vain and jealous of the favor Arthur found with their father, so he was a harsh taskmaster. It sounds like Kay did not really like Arthur that much. He was vain and he was very jealous of Arthur. Vain just means that he could be very selfish. He's too into himself. So that describes Kay. However, Arthur was very nice. He was tall, he was quick-witted, but he also had a gentle manner. Arthur came away from his lessons in swordsmanship with many bruises and cuts. When he complained, Kay replied, "A knight must be thick-skinned and ready to bear even grievous wounds without flinching." Yet if Arthur so much as pricked his brother Kay, would bellow loudly for the physician. Eventually, Kay appointed Arthur as his apprentice. An apprentice is just somebody who is learning a trade from someone. This was an honor the younger boy would happily have foregone. However, seeing that Sir Ector wished it so, Arthur sighed and agreed. So it sounded like Arthur did not want to be Kay's apprentice, but he agreed. But he felt in his heart that he already was a knight, though no lord had dubbed him so. No one had ever given Arthur the name as being a knight, but he felt like he was a knight. Both Arthur and Kay knew it was vital or really important to learn the arts of war. The kingdom was still at the mercy of upstart lords who ruled by fire and sword. The story of Uther's lost son, the true heir to the throne, would have been forgotten but for Merlin. One Christmas Eve, the long-absent magician reappeared and summoned the bishops, lords, and common folk to London Square. There he drove a broadsword halfway into a huge stone. Written on the blade in blazing gold letters were the words, "Whoso pulleth out the sword from the stone is born the rightful King of England." So this tells us that Merlin put this sword in a stone, and only the rightful King of England would be able to pull the sword out of the stone.